Welcome to the Fundamental Principles in Action. In these short videos, we are exploring some of the practical questions that have come up about applying the fundamental principles in our Red Cross work. Our mission in New Zealand Red Cross is to improve the lives of vulnerable people by mobilizing the power of humanity and enhancing community resilience. The Red Cross fundamental principles guide all that we do, whether we're helping people in New Zealand communities or providing urgent relief in international disasters. In this video, I'm going to introduce a little bit about what the fundamental principles mean and also what they're for. Many of you have heard me say before that the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement is characterized by a dynamic interaction between, on the one hand, principled humanitarian response, and on the other hand, legal frameworks that can protect vulnerable people in humanitarian emergencies. And it is the distinctive feature of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement that this dynamic interaction has been engaged ever since the early 1860s to characterize our humanitarian movement. So what are the fundamental principles? The fundamental principles are the agreed ethical standards for that principled humanitarian response. There is a substantial body of international movement policy and practice that guides the interpretation and application of the fundamental principles. For example, it might come as a surprise that they're not all equal. They're not all of equal weight, and they have different purposes. You can picture them in a pyramid, and I'll explain why as we go. First, we get to the top of the pyramid, and the two elements on the tip of the pyramid and the next level down are the most important two principles. They are our purpose. They're why we exist. The International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, as we know, was born of a desire to bring assistance without discrimination to the wounded on the battlefield. And so it endeavors in its international and national capacity to prevent and alleviate human suffering wherever it may be found. Its purpose is to protect life and health and ensure respect for the human being. Those are our official words about the meaning of the fundamental principle, humanity. It's about alleviating suffering, but not only alleviating suffering in ways that promote the dignity and respect of individuals, of people. So helping, but helping in a way that promotes dignity. The second principle on the second layer of the pyramid is impartiality, and it's very frequently confused with another principle we're going to get to in a minute, neutrality. And so I just want to guard against that, warn against that. Impartiality, by contrast with neutrality, has three elements, and I'm going to pause for you to try to remember what they are before I tell you. Firstly, they are about getting assistance to where the need is greatest. Secondly, it's about non-discrimination. And thirdly, it's about the exclusion of our personal bias to the degree that we possibly can. Impartiality makes no discrimination as to nationality, race, religious beliefs, class, or political opinions. And it endeavors to relieve the suffering of individuals being guided solely by needs and to give priority to the most urgent cases of distress. So those three elements are what to remember about impartiality. Go to where the need is greatest without discrimination and the exclusion of personal bias. Together, humanity and impartiality are the reasons we exist as Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. They are our purpose. And then we get in our pyramid to the middle layer. And the middle layer tell about the tools that we use to achieve the goals of humanity and impartiality. So firstly, we have, as one of our tools, the tool of neutrality. Notice here how what I'm going to tell you is different from what I've just described as impartiality. That in order to enjoy the confidence of all, that is, this is a tool, the movement may not take sides in hostilities or engage in any time in controversies of a political, racial, religious, or ideological nature. So neutrality is a tool to achieve that, getting the assistance to where the need is greatest and alleviating human suffering in a way that promotes human dignity. The second tool is independence. And in our official language, we say that national societies are auxiliary in humanitarian services of our governments. And we are subject to the laws of our respective countries, but we must always maintain autonomy. Autonomy so that we can at all times act consistently with our fundamental principles. Now, auxiliary is a word that many people stumble on. It was explained to me, I think, quite helpfully as complementary to government, that is complementary with an E to government, but independent of it. And so neutrality and independence are these tools that we use to achieve our purpose of humanity and impartiality. And then finally, at the base of our triangle that we're building, we have 3 principles that describe the characteristics of how we are organized. So notice then we have a pyramid where the top of the pyramid is our purpose of humanity, impartiality. The middle of the pyramid are the tools that we use to get there, neutrality and independence. And the base of the pyramid are the ways in which we are organized. And that includes voluntary service, a movement that's not prompted for any desire for personal gain. Unity, and that is that there can be one Red Cross or Red Crescent society in any given country, and it must be open to everyone, and it must get its humanitarian work throughout the territory. And finally, universality, which is that the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, in which all societies have equal status and share equal responsibilities and duties in helping each other, reaches worldwide. And so you have a triangle, and I present to you this triangle as a helpful tool from one of the most influential leaders of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, and one of the most influential thinkers in the development of international humanitarian law, Jean Pictet. Jean Pictet was involved from about the mid-30s in every single important development of the reframing of the Geneva Conventions and the additional protocols, and also developing the statutes of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movements in the early 1950s, and crucially was one of the main authors, perhaps the main one, I'm not sure, of the 1965 Statement of the 7 Fundamental Principles that were approved by the International Conference in that year. And it was Jean Pictet who developed this pyramid to explain to us how the principles are different, how they're not the same weight, and what they're for, very helpfully. There's an explanation of our fundamental principles in both English and Te Reo on the New Zealand Red Cross website. And I would invite you to come along, if you like, the next time there's a chance at a workshop that I run called The DNA of the Red Cross. And it explains a bit more in detail about what we share and what sets us apart as a humanitarian movement. That is our unique identity, our DNA. So look for the DNA of the Red Cross online and also at a venue near you.